Hi, I'm Toby Vernon, a partner with Cimpatico Studios and host of the Food and Agriculture channel on Cimpatico TV. The global food and agriculture sector is faced with a complex set of intersecting challenges, sustainably feeding a growing population amid accelerating climate change and declining farmland and farmer populations. Each week, I host live stream talk shows featuring farmers and ranchers, researchers, policymakers, investors, and business and technology developers. Together, we're growing a community of leaders that are addressing food and ag's most vexing problems, one innovative solution at a time. And I invite you to join us in the live audience or as a guest. I'm glad you're here. Enjoy the conversation. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the Food and Agriculture channel on Cimpatico TV. Today, Dr. Bastiaanssen joins us to talk about the innovative irrigation technology he's developed through 30 years of research as a scientist and global water accountant. Wim's company IrriWatch uses specialized remote sensing algorithms to provide farmers and irrigators the data they need to optimize water applications based on their unique location and crop and weather context. Dr. Bastiaanssen's joining us from the Netherlands, and you're very welcome. Great to see you here, Dr. Bastiaanssen. How are you today?
Hello, Toby. Very nice to be in your show. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. This is a topic obviously crucial and important to the agriculture sector. But the technology that you've been developing over the course of 30 years as a researcher, as a lecturer, as a scientist and consultant is fascinating, and I want to learn more about this idea of what you say we're aiming for, which is more crop per drop. Can you tell me a bit about what IrriWatch is doing to provide more crop per drop?
Yeah, thank you, Toby. We'll be very happy to do that. See, at higher level, we talked for a long time about improving the water productivity or crop per drop. And some people call that also water use efficiency. So there are a lot of people at higher level that want to create a better use of water. And that is very nice. But in the end, we have to help the people, and in this case, the farmers on the ground, because the farming and the irrigation sector is using 70 to 90% of the water in our rivers and reservoirs. So if we do not help them on an individual basis, then it's very difficult for a farmer to increase that crop per drop. So IrriWatch is a remote sensing company. Okay. So there are now many remote sensing companies that use satellite images to map what happens in the field. And IrriWatch is using those, let's say, state-of-the-art models and satellites to measure every 30 feet by 30 feet every day.
Okay.
So we can really zoom into your crop.
So I want to get into the technical aspects of how your algorithms work and sort of the technology behind IrriWatch. But tell me about why a grower should be interested in this remote sensing data provision. I mean, farmers and irrigators, water applicators have for a long time been able to stick their finger in the soil and sort of check the relative moisture. They can look at their plants and see how happy they are. Yeah. Why are these methods not adequate for water application? And yeah, why should farmers and irrigators be so interested in this?
Yeah, there is really a need for more precision. In the older days, somebody was indeed just looking at the field, are my crops okay or not? And you were opening the valves and you were irrigating.
Yeah.
But that time is over. We cannot just longer flood our lands because we have only a limited amount of water. And people then ask me, but is there less water on Earth? No, it's like still exactly the same. But we have now locally more demand for water. We have now also a growing population. So other sectors also need water. We are much more concerned about our environment now and wetlands. They all need water. But also, there is a link to changes in our weather pattern. So we have less rainfall, maybe some places less snowfall. There are locations with glacier melt. So if you put the two together, that you have less water and you need more demand, then somewhere it's not matching. So farmers, they better get used to the idea that there will be less water for them in the future.
Mm.
Now, classically, a farmer thinks about, okay, I have a business, I want a certain income, I want to have a certain crop production, and I evaluate my agricultural practices per unit of land. Okay, like so many pounds per acre. That is the classical basis. What we want to actually do more with IrriWatch is help them also to think more about, okay, but can we also have the same production but with less water?
Mm.
So can we bring down the amount of water that the crop is needed? And yes, that is possible. We know from research, there are great research organizations everywhere in the world. We know that this is possible. But then you leave it to all PhDers, to do the to do the to do the cropping. Okay, okay, they know how to do it. But then let's now reach out to Farmer John. Okay, he also has to do it. And so I really want to use these satellite measurements to show him where he is on that line. Is he above the line, which is good, or is he below the line, which means like, hey, John, you're still using too much water. And there are many colleagues of you in the same village, maybe even on the same road, who have the same production but use less water. And that's
Mm.
fascinating.
Mm. So you're saying that farmer A and farmer B can have the same 1,000 acres. They can be growing the same crop. Let's choose a commodity. Let's say they're both doing the same corn and soy rotation. Farmer A might be using traditional irrigation practices. He might just be observing the quality of his field, sticking his finger in the soil. Farmer B might be using more precision techniques, and his soy crop is looking better. It's producing higher yields precisely for the fact that he's more intelligently and more precisely applying water to where it's needed. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. And
Okay.
sometimes even the yield between farmer A and B are the same, but one is using
Mm.
much more water than the other.
Yeah, which is
And
a crucial point, obviously.
which is a crucial point, because the message I want to give, unfortunately, is that everything will become more watertight.
Mm.
There's no escape.
Mm.
We have to optimize. And we know we can do it from the academic research of many years, but now we have to help the farmers on, moving into a better direction. And,
So,
and if I can add, Tony, so it's also that it can be an economic incentive for the farmer.
tell me about
Uh,
that.
because you see, if he irrigates less, maybe have less energy costs. Maybe he's pumping from 1,000 feet. Okay. And if he pumps from 1,000 feet, you need a lot of heavy equipment for drilling, for
Mm.
pumping, a lot of energy, more labor and so on. But if you can have less intense irrigations, maybe reuse the water, you may have to pay less for energy, but also for water. Some countries, they charge now for water. So even then, if they can save this 10, 20, 30%, that is already a lot of economic saving. So my point is
Right.
that it can also be an incentive for the farmer to to look more carefully about how much water he is using.
Mm. Good point. Um, so let's talk about the IrriWatch product in a little bit more detail, and how farmers get data and how farmers make decisions
Hmm.
around their irrigation practices.
Yeah.
How does that even happen? So you're working with remote sensing algorithms. Is
We
this an app? Are
Mhm.
you providing reports? Tell me about that.
Yeah. No, we have an app. So it's mainly app based because that is what growers like the most, to have an app. So the satellites, we have about 8 different satellites that come in the midday situation. And then in the evening, I'm collecting all these images from different space agencies, from America, from Europe, from Japan. I'm collecting all these images. I do the processing in the cloud. And then overnight, I will send an update to the growers. Okay. So in the morning at the breakfast, they get an app message on a field by field basis. Number one, should I irrigate or not? Because maybe if there's no need, it says, hey, you can wait a few days. It saves you water. Number two, if you have to irrigate, what would be the amount? Okay. So we also give you, like today, you have to give so many inches. So instead of the normal 1.4 inch, today give 1.1 inch. And so it's really field specific and for every day. And this service is based on a data subscription. So farmers can sign up their specific fields. They can say, okay, this field is mine. This one is having cotton. Okay, then I go to the other field. This one is strawberries, and then I knowing it's a strawberry, for instance, I gave a different irrigation schedule than if it's a cotton crop. So I use that information from the farm.
Crucial that you're able to provide data based on site location, weather patterns, weather as it changes, and crop. So what's the advantage of using a remote sensing approach as opposed to, I don't know, just using like a historical weather data and following historical weather patterns?
Yeah. Well, the historical weather patterns are always good to learn from, like, hey, that year we had this weather, what was the yield, and so on. That's always good. But what we do with the real time is that we can really take into consideration the actual situation. Like, compare it to weather forecasts. You really would like to have a weather forecast on a specific moment for that moment. Should I take on a coat or not if I go outside? Do I expect rain or not?
Yeah.
And that's the same with irrigation. Irrigation is very dynamic. The moisture changes from day to day. The weather changes from day to day. But even the crop, some crops, they can grow in 100 days, and and they will be harvested. So even in 1 or 2, 3 days, crops can really grow fast. So the point here is that everything is very dynamic. And you asked before about, but what about local sensing? You can put maybe some instruments in the soil, which is super good. It's always good to measure. But don't forget that one sensor is measuring the volume of a tennis ball. Okay, so let's say you have there your 50-acre field with corn or soya, and then you have your expensive sensor that is measuring the size of a tennis ball. It's not so easy to base your decisions on irrigation upon such a thing. So for me, it's very important to look at spatial variability. So I like with IrriWatch to not only give the average for the whole field, which is really a truly representative value, but also the ranges, like how many pixels are dry and how many pixels are wet. Because as a farmer, also you want to keep the spatial variability within your field small. You want to have uniform moisture, uniform production, and so on. So that is another reason that satellite images can give you the full insights. And cost-wise, it's not much more than the traditional irrigation sensors. So also sensors, a farmer has to invest several hundreds of dollars and sometimes even thousands of dollars. An IrriWatch subscription, if I can say so, is only $6 per acre per year.
Okay, wow.
And not only you get then the irrigation advice, but you also can see your production. So you can see the accumulation of your cotton fields, the production. Do I do well or not? But also what is the reference? So do I better than or worse than other years? Do I use more water or less water? So you get also like alerts, like, are you okay during the season? If you do it at the end of the season, it's too late. You cannot change your irrigation. and your farm practices. But during the season, you can modify, and that's good. That's very good.
So tell me a bit. Let's dig into the data collection and measurement process a little bit here. So, what exactly are satellites measuring, and how's that data processed in such a way that it's useful to a farmer to make decisions based on?
Yeah, no, that is a very good question. So the satellites, they measure radiation. They are what we call radiometers, okay? So, but from that, we can derive the temperature of the leaves, the temperature of the crop. And that is a very important parameter, because the temperature of the crop tells you whether it has sufficient moisture, the crop photosynthesis is good, growth is good, and so on. So we have different satellites that measure the temperature. And what I did as a scientist is I developed those models that take this raw data and from different satellites, and I'm not going to explain in more details, but we have several bands, several satellites. I put it all together in one big model or algorithm, and we run it in the cloud, so that it's cheap. Otherwise, I never can afford it, at $6 per acre per year.
Yeah, that's an incredibly that's to me it seems like a bargain price.
It is. No, it is. And seriously, 5 years ago, this was impossible. I tell you, Toby, 5 years ago, I had 35 people, doing all this image processing, and now it's just two-man company. Everything in the cloud, and we make it for free, and that's the good thing, of living in the 2020, that we have a lot of.
So that sounds great that you have really economized your sort of the business side here, and I'm happy for that. But tell me about the farmer capital outlay needs. Do they need to change their equipment or their irrigation infrastructure at all?
No, not necessarily. I mean, many of them already have good drip irrigation systems in place.
Okay.
They already have a sprinkler system in place or a center pivot. Some of them are still having the flood irrigation, which is not necessarily bad. I mean, even in Southern California, and all these vegetable areas, you have a lot of flood irrigation. But if you know how to do it, you can do it. The point is much more like, I don't need to, the farmer do not need to change infrastructure, but it's more the operation of the infrastructure. And this is quite important. It's a mindset thing, because people always, you see, if they have a flat tire with the John Deere, they will replace it immediately. Okay. If they have to buy a new drip liner, they buy it. It's a mindset to say, okay, I buy a new drip line, but also now I buy a small software package that helps me in the operations. But tell me every time I have to fight again, explaining like, hey guy, if you buy this small additional piece, you can have more benefits from your investment. Okay.
So you're not asking, you're providing people the decision-making data. You're not asking them necessarily to change their practice.
No, that's up to them. That is really up to them.
Tell me about
some farmers want to have a full automation, so that because sometimes even the workers make then a mistake. So the farmer takes the right decision, the manager and the workers, they make a mistake. So they like that in the end, but I think we're still a few years away, that automatically we control the valves, that distribute the water in the field. That technically is possible.
Yeah, so you were reading my thoughts there. I was curious to know how what your data or what your platform is integrated to, and how much automation is possible, how much manual sort of ground truthing is still necessary. Is there tell me about what processes are in place to verify that the data that's being delivered to farmers is actually yielding sort of the target moisture.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, because if you're not used to those remote sensing products, it's like, I don't believe you. It's too good to be true.
Right.
So you have to show all the time it's accurate. And it's interesting because we work in 25 countries, but in every country, We have to show this again and again. So if I go to Egypt and show nice maps of Arkansas, they will say, no, no, not good, not good. We have to check
Sure.
it in Egypt.
Sure.
So there are. I like to work with local universities also a lot,
Okay.
because they have also interest in new research. So I like to say that a local university, have a publication and say, hey, this is good, this is reliable. But also I like to work with very applied people, people that have more mud on their hands. These are more the agricultural extension people. The more other people say that it works, the better it is, because farmers are a bit conservative when it comes to new things. And very often it's like, my neighbor is not using it, so I'm also not using it. But then you get into a cycle, because nobody's using it because there is no neighbor who's using it. So working with innovators is also very important. And the best advertisement of the product is that if an innovator, a farmer innovator, is telling, hey, this is good, especially if he tells
Yes.
that on social media or on your channel.
Yeah,
that
for
is that
sure.
is the most important. If they are satisfied, then other people will also accept it.
We
Yeah.
hear that all the time with new agricultural system transitions. Take cover crops, for example. We hear this all the time, right? Like Farmer Jones is not gonna start using a cover crop rotation in between his corn and soy. It's extra fertilizer, it's extra seed, it's extra time, it's
Mm.
equipment cost, and until Farmer Dan from 3 fields down really starts to go to the coffee shop and bear the, as the farmers say, bear the brunt of other farmers talking about him when they're there for coffee in the morning and talking about his fields looking dirty and not clean, pristine, chocolate cake clean and smooth. But when as Gabe Brown says, when they move from signing the back of the check to the front of the check, that's where, or from the front of the check to the back of the check, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
that's really where the proof is shown in the pudding. So talk to me a little bit about geography. Mike in the community room here is curious about where IrriWatch is right now. Is the product available to farmers out on the market right now? If so, where are you?
Any farmer in the world, any field, any crop. So
Wow.
recently, I had a podcast. It was recorded in America, and I got a client from New Zealand, and now he's using it. Then I got
Very
another client from South America, So this kind of also broadcasts are very important to reach out. So there is no restriction. So if you are a farmer, if you have land in another country or in another state in the US, far away, no problem. It takes approximately 1 day between signing up and that you're getting the first data on your app.
That's
Because
impressive.
it is.
Very
And
cool.
we are in 25 countries. So, I mean, California is obviously big, but also Mexico, Brazil, Spain, um, Portugal, South Africa, Middle East, so Israel,
Yeah.
Egypt, Lebanon, so, but also Central Asia. Central Asia has also a lot of problems on water. They have big irrigation systems. Also there, we help. And we are not only helping farmers, but also we have what we call water districts. So like a water board or an irrigation district, or you may them call irrigation department.
Yeah.
They have a responsibility of a certain acreage of land, and they want to do a good job. They want to be accountable in a way. They want to say, hey, people, this is what we do for you, and they want to show it to everybody. And some of them already subscribed. They said, look, we do not want to have it for the daily decisions, but we want to show the larger public we use the scarce water wisely. And that's quite a fascinating concept.
It is. Just to sort of bring this conversation to a temporary close until we meet again. Tell me a little bit about who's not using IrriWatch that maybe could and should. So we've talked a lot about farmers, but that's clearly not the last and
Sure.
most necessary end user.
There are absolutely different groups. So we talked about the farmers, we talked about the water districts, but also think about agricultural insurance. So we calculate crop growth, crop production. So for instance, if you have a dry year, farmers can take an insurance that if it's too dry, they get a compensation, a financial payout. But what is dry? So you have to measure not only the moisture, but also we can see how much less the production is. Okay, so that is, for instance, very interesting for an insurance company. But also the let's say you have many factories of center pivot irrigation, right, or drip systems. So if they can sell it, but if they can add, a package for maybe 2 years or 3 years, subscription, that is maybe, less than 0.01% of the total investment. And then that grower can have much more, benefits from that investment. So it's also, but it should come from the equipment providers. You see, so you're talking about completely different groups of potential clients. So that is what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, well, I think that tees us up for a future conversation about the policy environment of water conservation and water pricing. But thank you, Dr. Van Bastiaanssen, for joining me today. This is an important and really fun topic to talk about. I appreciate you making the time. Folks can learn more about IrriWatch at irriwatch.com.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for joining us. It's great to have you. I hope you'll come back and join us again in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Toby. It was a real pleasure to be in your show and have a nice conversation on something that is, the missing link when you talk about sustainable food and agriculture. You have to add the water component. So I'm very glad that I got some time to express myself on this topic. Thank you.
Likewise. If you'll just hang on with us, we'll close out this segment and then move into Just Chatting.